けど久しぶりにバイブス上げてこう嬉しそうできるスイカ
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And we're here with a special bonus episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast, because we just saw the newest Studio Ghibli Hayao Miyazaki movie. We saw The Boy and the Heron. Also, I accidentally set my gain too high for the first 15 minutes of the podcast, so sorry if I clip sometimes. Okay, back to Ghibli talk.
That's right, and I'm in the unique position of this being my first Miyazaki movie, and I'm sure I am in the vast minority when I say that.
Yeah, for somehow, some way, you have gone your entire anime-consuming life without seeing a single Ghibli, not even a non-Miyazaki one. You haven't even seen a single one of them.
It's like avoiding raindrops in a hurricane, but you know what? Somehow I've managed the feat.
Like even me, I've seen a criminal lack of Ghiblis for how much I claim to be, an elitist gatekeeping asshole about anime. But I don't think I've even seen half of them yet. I think I'm close to seeing half of them, but I've seen, I think, a majority of Miyazaki's works, at least under the Ghibli umbrella.
I've seen precisely 0 of them, and you know what? I could make it until now, and I could make it. God, imagine how funny it would have been if, in preparation for watching this movie, I decided to just make the entire world mad at me, watching Earwig and the Witch, Tales from Earthsea, just every non-Miyazaki Ghibli movie, and then say, alright, I'm prepared to watch Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, I mean, once you've seen Earwig and the Witch, you don't really need to see any more Ghiblis. That's the peak.
I mean, hey, it's so good that,
technically,
public
you will have seen, if you watch Earwig and the Witch, you would have seen a Miyazaki movie. Not necessarily a Hayao one.
True. So you know what? Yeah, that could be my first Miyazaki movie.
Yeah, you could have just seen all the Goro ones. The ones that made Hayao Miyazaki get up out of his chair in the theater, go outside and smoke in front of cameras. And say he's not ready yet.
God, what a legendary, infamous Miyazaki moment. But that aside...
he's a legendary director, but a kind of an asshole of a dad.
That's common knowledge at this point. But hey, it's okay. Let's not allow it to taint our viewing of this movie. And just jump in.
Because this could be his final one. He's come out of retirement for the nth time. And it's been like 10 years since his last Ghibli movie. And this,
how
considering
old
the man is now
dude right now?
He's 82.
82.
Yeah, so either he's got one more in him if he starts on it like right now, but I highly doubt it. Given the subject matter and what happens in this movie and the themes of it, I really think this is gonna be his last one.
Save me. Save me, Mahito.
What exactly are you?
Your mother. She's awaiting your rescue. I'll be your guide.
It definitely feels... I can't imagine him making another one after this, but hey, I imagine people said that after whatever the one right before this was, Wind Rises, I think it was called. Yeah. So hey, maybe he's got one more in him.
Who's to say? We've been wrong like 6 other times before. So Hayao Miyazaki, the man needs no introduction. He is, not just God King of anime, he is like God King among even film directors. One of the all-time greats. If you made a list of top 10 greatest film directors of all time, Hayao Miyazaki should probably be on that list. Because he's made the only anime movie to receive a Best Animated Feature win, because we've had other anime movies get noms, but never wins. But that's less of Ghibli movies being, super duper special, and more of the Academy does not understand anime.
Yeah, meanwhile, Hayao's movies are broadly appealing even in the West. Like, of all the anime stuff that people consume, obviously, there's Naruto, Bleach, and whatnot. But then there's the Ghibli movies, which they probably saw a lot as children, even. They're the types of
Ghibli
movies that
transcends anime. Like even a non-anime fan in the West probably knows what a Ghibli is or a Hayao Miyazaki is, and even if they don't know the man's name, they've probably heard the movies that he's directed: My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, etc.
yeah, except me somehow. I'm the exemption to that rule.
Well, you know who he is. You just haven't seen the movies that he's made.
Yeah, no, I had no idea who he was before watching this movie, honestly.
Yeah, right. You're a Digibro fan. Don't even try to feign that ignorance.
Yeah, I'll give up the act.
And yeah, so much like the Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, unfortunately I'm 2 for 2 now in putting you in the unfortunate situation on accident of introducing you to a series or a work of art or a series of works of art in the worst possible entry point, because this is akin to opening a book and starting from the last chapter, because this is Boy and the Heron is best enjoyed when you are at least familiar with the man's work and seen like some of his movies, like a good handful of them. If this is your very first Hayao Miyazaki movie, you are doing yourself a disservice by watching this one first.
Yeah, well, funny me for that one, because normally I name the voice channel we record these things in based off of the show we're talking about, because it's funny. For this one, I just put a string of question marks. Just filled every character. I think I get some of the surface level things, and I even was able to pick up on what might not be an intentional reading of the narrative, but that what I got of it was a sort of meta look at his career, I guess, and how he feels and what message he wants to impart on the audience with this being his swan song. I did pick up on something that might be that. Once again, it's a bit of an abstract reading, so it may not be correct. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with other Ghibli movies, so I'm probably wrong. But on the whole, I just sort of sat there with a trio of question marks, ostensibly, floating above my head, asking myself...
That's one for the ostensibly counter. Take a drink, folks.
Yeah, get your vodka out. I'm gonna say it a lot more just to make you drink yourself to death. And probably by accident, too, honestly. Listen, it's a useful word. But... you know what? I can say they're metaphorically above my head. I'm a wordsmith. And, I just sat there going, I don't think I get it. I think there's something in this movie that went really, really over my head.
Alright, so I guess, let's answer the burning question. Is The Boy and the Heron good?
No.
You're just gonna rip the bandage right off, and there goes the dislike bar, there goes the sub count, there goes the viewership, our watch time is now our engagement time has dropped down, it's a fucking straight gravity pull.
Listen, I can save it. It's not bad. I will clarify that much. It's just not good either.
Yeah, it's just mid.
Yeah, one of the most legendary directors of all time.
Legendary director's whole career. Yeah, it's mid.
Maybe there's more I can get out of it if I, watch the other Ghibli movies. But I was watching it. Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying, most likely. But to me, I was watching it and just thinking... for a lot of it, I was thinking, what's the point? And I know there is a point insofar as the main character does have an arc, but it all felt oddly disjointed in a way, as if the very ending felt like a complete non sequitur from what most of the movie was developing within Mahito as a protagonist. And we'll get into that more as we go on. And I imagine the ending is, like, the very end of the movie is sort of him saying what he wants to impart on the audience, having this be his final movie. But it didn't really coalesce with everything before it to me. It felt kind of just tacked on in a very inelegant way, is what I got from it.
Yeah. All right. I'll say this. I thought the movie was good. It's I do not agree with the narrative that the GKIDS Twitter is it's in their best interest to push this narrative, obviously. But to be fair, there's also they're not just making bot accounts and retweeting their own posts. These are genuine people who have seen the movie. I have seen a lot of praise for it being like it's like a masterpiece. It's Miyazaki's best work yet. I don't agree with that at all. I feel like it's not even in the top 5 of the movies the man himself has made. I liked it, but I can see how, and as far as like it being his last movie, you could not make a better one to be like to have it be his last. But if you told me, do you think it's the best one? I would say no, not even close. It's like a 7.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I probably shouldn't spoil my score right out the gate, especially since I'm still wavering between two numbers. Well, okay, that spoils it. I'm wavering between a 5 and a 6 on this one.
Well, we'll see how you feel by the end, because I was kind of wavering between a 7 and an 8, but then I went through all of the Ghibli movies that I've seen, and I couldn't bring myself to say that it was on par with everything that I'd put in an 8, and I should probably to further condemn us to the crucifixion. I have seen. Let me get the exact list out so I can get all my proper bearings. So as far as Hayao Miyazaki directed Ghibli movies I have seen Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, The Boy and the Heron, Kiki's Delivery Service, Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away, Ponyo, and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So that's like more than half the ones he's directed under the Ghibli umbrella, I'm pretty sure. Cause he makes up half of them, and I think the other half is made up of mostly Isao Takahata, and who's like the second voice of Ghibli. And of those 8 Miyazaki movies that I've seen, I don't think I've seen a single one that's above an 8 out of 10. I'm kind of developing the opinion that Ghibli, while good and consistent at making good movies, have not made like masterpieces. My top 2 favorite Ghibli movies are Nausicaa and Ponyo.
Damn, I
and
guess
they're both only 8 out of 10s.
I guess considering the score you gave Weathering with You, Shinkai really is the next Miyazaki after all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm gonna out myself so hard. I think not counting like being generous and not counting Garden of Words because that's more of a short film. I think Shinkai so far has made no Miyazaki movie I've seen is better than Weathering with You. I think Shinkai has made a movie better than any one single movie Miyazaki has made. Granted, I haven't seen them all yet. I have not seen Porco Rosso. I have not seen Princess Mononoke, which I hear is like another one of the big boys, and I have a feeling that I might love that one because it's like the most narratively driven and dramatic Ghibli movie. But I saw Spirited Away a couple months ago, and I only gave it an 8. I didn't think it was a masterpiece. Now, granted, it is one of those rare movie experiences where I came out of the theater and realized that the movie was good, but then was like, I definitely feel like I'm missing something here because like I have to give it like a higher rating than an 8, right? It's motherfucking Spirited Away. It's heralded not just one of the greatest animated movies of all time. Excuse me. Oh fuck. but one of the greatest movies of all time. But then I watched the whole thing and I was like, it's good, but it's not. I don't get why it's a masterpiece. So maybe repeat viewings will improve it for me, and maybe the same thing could happen with Boy and the Heron once I finish Miyazaki's filmography, and then I can better compare it to the rest of his filmography. But the way it stands right now, I'm of the opinion that Ghibli is a smidge overrated. And I know that's the most hipster contrarian thing to say. Well, I guess it could be worse. I could say Ghibli sucks, but I think Ghibli is great and deserves the hype. I just think that maybe it's not as not every single one of them bang. My Neighbor Totoro is cute, but it's like such a basic ass movie. Like it's like a nothing movie. Nothing happens in it.
Your experience with Spirited Away sounds kind of like what I went through with this movie, where after getting out of it, I just got the indescribable sense that I was missing some core element of the puzzle. Because I know this guy's legacy. I know he's supposed to be the all-time GOAT. But I looked at it and I was like, it's just not that good.
I'll be the first one to admit it. Miyazaki is not a perfect director. I think Howl's Moving Castle is a bad movie.
Wow, you're just casually dropping that. You'd even describe it as bad.
Well, okay, bad is in a 5 out of 10. Maybe if you want to call it mid, fine. But it's anyone who thinks it's a good movie is deluding themselves. The only good part of that movie is Calcifer.
All right, I guess we're all coming out with just all our hot Miyazaki takes. What next? You're gonna say Tales from Earthsea is the best Miyazaki movie?
I haven't seen that one, but I have a feeling I will not like it from everything that I've heard about it.
Same here, but that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I guess we can just go into the movie proper at this point. Also, this is completely random, but I just now thought of it. Because I'm looking at the AniList poster. I like how when you look at the poster they put on Mal and AniList, which is the one visual from the movie that we were made aware of before it came out, if I recall correctly. It just looks like a normal-ass heron, but now, having seen the movie, you can see the eye under his bill. I think that's pretty
I noticed
cool.
that from the beginning. I always thought it was a dude inside a heron, or I thought it was a dude wearing like a heron, like hood, kind of like like a beaver hood, or like wearing like a lion pelt.
To be fair, that is kind of what it is, with an asterisk next to it. But yeah. The movie's about our boy Mahito Maki. And his mom dies in a fire because of the war going around. And then a year later...
So a character named Maki died in a fire? That's crazy. That's like that's probably the only time that's gonna happen this year.
When the fuck... What reference are you making? I don't know.
Maki, fire... Do I need to spell it out?
Yes, you do need to spell it out.
Jujutsu Kaisen!
Jujutsu Kaisen. Oh, I'm dumb. I am really dumb. That took me a second.
Come on, man. I thought it was such a banger.
It is a banger. I just forgore. But anyway,
I was gonna bring up that hey, Mahito Maki, like clearly Miyazaki is a Jujutsu Kaisen fan.
True. And so after his mom dies, his dad starts going out with this woman named, I'm pretty sure, Natsuko. Yeah, Natsuko. And, they move, and they go to this house with all these old ladies in it. The way they're depicted at first is really weird, by the way. Because
that's just old ladies in Ghibli movies. That you just have to accept that.
That's just a thing.
Yeah, it's just a thing. It's like that in Ponyo. It's like that in Spirited Away.
I found it really weird and jarring the first time I saw that scene because they're so much more oddly proportioned than everyone else. So it almost
when you become an elderly person in a Ghibli movie, you just become a deformed human person. Your face develops all of the wrinkles.
Yeah, even the way they were acting felt just odd in the first few scenes they were in. Obviously, as the movie goes on, they get more human feeling interactions, which was really needed because the first time I saw them, I was like, it feels like I'm watching a bunch of animals in human costumes running around.
I thought they were supposed to be like the seven dwarves because there were seven of them.
It felt exactly like that. I literally, the first thing that entered my mind is these look and feel like Disney background characters.
I mean, the movie kind of has a Alice in Wonderland type of vibe. So
that's literally
I would not be surprised
the
if
same
that's,
thing that went through my mind.
I would not be surprised if that's like the intention he was going for, to reference the first animated movie of all time ever made.
I haven't even seen Alice in Wonderland, and I got that vibe from it.
Well, no. Snow White is the first animated movie.
Well, yeah, Snow White is the first one. Alice in Wonderland is the one where she goes through all those crazy surrealist adventures. And that's what came to my mind while watching the fantasy portion of this movie.
Yeah.
But they move into this place, and Mahito is still getting over the death of his mother, even a year later. And this time, unlike Suzume earlier this year, we do actually get a lot more hints as to his mental state. You know, there's one point where he's climbing down the stairs, or rather, he's trying to sneak to the tower in this scene, but then there's people, he's trying to sneak down the stairs, but then in his mind, just that fire appears again, just impromptu.
Yeah, it's like, it's the weirdest scene in a Miyazaki movie, because he's never rendered characters in such like an abstract way before. He's usually depicts moments like this very clearly, and gives his characters the same level of attention to detail. But in the scene with the fire at the beginning of the movie, when he's going to go see his mother's hospital on fire, when he's rushing by all the people, they're like really abstracted and they're animated smoothly, but they lack detail.
Yeah, I actually really liked that scene because it's so fast.
Yeah, it sets
it
sets the tone.
Yeah, and it is clearly way more fast than he's actually running, but it's because of the way the animation is showing it that it feels even more high octane than it would otherwise, and even more, it's a very powerful image, is basically what I'm getting at. Although, I guess I'll be the first one to admit, I don't really like Mahito as a protagonist, if I'm gonna keep it a buck with you.
I liked him less as the movie went on, if only not because of anything he did, but because of things he did not do.
I mean, I had a similar experience, but I was also even lacking the first basic point of connection. Like, with other movies, I can be like, oh, okay, I get this protagonist, they've done something that endeared me to them. With Mahito, I was intrigued with what his deal was, but that connection point was lacking. And
I mean, well, it's like, he's not, I feel like the reason that he's not going to maybe immediately endear him to you is because he's kind of not necessarily a brat,
stoic.
But yeah, he's very stoic and emotionally withdrawn because he's still grieving over the loss of his mom. And while he's definitely misses her and is definitely bothered by it, it doesn't like turn him into a like non-functioning member of society, except for this one part where like he's so, and this is like one of the crucial parts of the movie that they do in a bit of a montage, where he is going to school for the first time, and he's he's so doesn't want to deal with all the stuff there that he gets into a fight, and then when he's on his way home from school, he just finds a rock and bashes it against his head, where he's so bleeding profusely, and so he as all as an excuse so that he doesn't have to go back. He doesn't. I thought he was gonna be like a bit of a manipulator and get into a fight, and maybe he didn't like get as. I thought he was gonna get into a fight to like get back at a kid who like bullied him in class or something. and then he would when after the fight, when he looked like he didn't get that beat up, he would bash himself with the rock to make it look like the kid went too far and try to get him expelled or something, to be like, oh, his kid's kind of like maybe a devilish sociopath because of his mother's passing and doesn't know how to properly interact with people right now. But no, he just does it to be like, I just don't want to go to school again, man. I don't.
Yeah, and that was the point where I felt most endeared to him, because that's a very extreme action to take, right? Like, literally bashing himself with a rock in the head. I would not. I don't think most people would have the guts to do that to themselves, but he is, able to just do that. He's also depicted as someone who likes exploring a lot, even during the very opening scene of the movie. He's depicted crawling up. He's very nimble. He crawls up the staircase with like literally on all fours, like with his hands and his legs. And he, when he's approaching the tower, it's very blocked in, but there's this very slight slit that he, can theoretically squeeze through. And he tries really hard to get through there before he's summoned away from the tower. And I wouldn't have the bravery to go through there, but clearly he does. And he tries to get himself through the squeeze. And
yeah, what's interesting
like
about
that.
Mahito? What's interesting about Mahito is that he's like, I believe, I'm fact checking this on the Wikipedia page to make sure I'm not talking out of my ass here. He's the first young male protagonist of a Ghibli movie, directed by Miyazaki, where it's he doesn't share like the lead role with anyone. There have been young boy protagonists in his movies before, and male protagonists. He usually prefers writing female protagonists, and they're usually younger women. But let's see, there's Pazu in Castle in the Sky, but he shares the main character role with Shita. There's Porco Rosso, but that's an adult male. And Princess Mononoke, where he's more of a teenager, but then he also Ashitaka shares the role with the titular Princess Mononoke. And then The Wind Rises, where once again it's an adult male. So this is his first solo young man protagonist. And what's interesting about him compared to all of the other children, the child protagonists of his age, is that all the other young female protagonists are not very emotionally withdrawn, because they can develop that way throughout the course of the story, but they are very outward in their expressing of emotion. Like Kiki is very bubbly at the start of the movie. The girls from Totoro are very bubbly. Shita, while kind of like withdrawn, if only because of her upbringing and constantly being attacked by members of the government to get her secrets, she's very clearly like enjoys adventuring. Ponyo is literally just Kirby. It's just literally just anime fish Kirby, and that's why she's one of my favorites. Etc. etc. The closest protagonist I can compare Mahito to within Ghibli is Chihiro from Spirited Away. But whereas Chihiro was fascinated by and taken in bewilderment of the fantasy world that she ends up in, and does kind of fall in love with it by the end, and appreciates it for the wonder that it is. Mahito doesn't really change his opinion on the world of the fantasy world too much. He is like, his main goal, his main priority is to find his mother, because when he gets to the new estate that he's gonna live in after his mom died, he is being pestered by this Heron who is able to speak, and he says, your presence is requested. Oh, by the way, major two things that we probably should have established at the beginning of this podcast. I will have to throw this part in in post at the start of it. This will be a spoiler podcast. We'll mark a spoiler-free and a spoiler discussion of the movie. So we'll do it like we did Cyberpunk Edge Runners. So if you haven't seen it, because it literally just came out in the States, by the time this comes out, you'll get your fair warning. And did you see the sub or the dub?
I saw the sub.
Ah, you heathen. You absolute troglodyte.
Listen, I knew you were going dub, so I had to, I had to give the podcast full coverage. Although he does absolutely speak like that in the sub as well.
I have not seen too many sub clips, but seeing any Ghibli movie subbed is a sin. But man, this cast might be one of the best cast of characters that they've, well, not written, but one of the best voice casts in any Ghibli movie, because they got fucking Robert Pattinson, the Twilight guy, to do a Willem Dafoe voice for the Heron when they already cast Willem Dafoe in this movie. And I was when I first heard the casting of this movie, I thought Willem Dafoe was gonna play the Heron, and I was shocked to hear that it was just Robert Pattinson doing a Willem Dafoe impression. Willem Dafoe ended up playing a pelican in the movie.
Yeah, I don't really have much context for the American actors, nor really for the Japanese ones. Although, the performances were all good, from what I could tell. Fucking Himi's was very bubbly, as it should be. The Heron's literally sounds exactly like you're describing, exactly like your impression of it.
When he's
Japanese.
Not in his this isn't a spoiler because it's in the trailer. When he's in his Wario form, does he
Wario form? That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, when the Heron Man is in his Heron form, does he like talk like low like this and like with a very scraggly deep voice, Wazowski, and like but very menacing? But then when he's the Wario Man, he like talks more like a normal person.
Yeah, it's the same way in the sub as well. Although I definitely wouldn't call him menacing. I mean, there is one scene where he absolutely is pretty menacing. But
yeah,
overall,
in the dub, he is very. Whenever he's in his Heron form, he is very like scary.
I was never scared by him per se. Obviously, I knew he was up to no good. Or I guess he seemed up to no good at first, but as the movie goes on, things sort of change. But like his voice just came off more funny to me than anything.
I mean, it is a funny voice to do, but in the context of the movie and all the scenes where he's in his Heron form, he does a great job. And now it makes me want to see Robert Pattinson in more voice roles, because now that I know he can do a Willem Dafoe voice, and now if Willem Dafoe ever passes, we have someone to pass the torch of making evil sounding wizard men.
Yeah, so let's see. What do we want to cover next?
I thought you were gonna piggyback off of my point. What was I talking about before?
I don't think I have anything else to say about the voice casts.
Okay, what was I talking about before I brought up the spoilers, the disclaimer and the voice cast?
Yeah, we were talking about Mahito before that point. I'm pretty sure.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, with the Heron. Oh yeah. When Mahito is with the Heron, and he's being the Heron's coming to him, and he's being like, "Your presence is requested. Come to the tower." And he's being lured to the tower. It's under the notion that his mom, if there's even a chance that she's still alive, he wants to see him for himself, even though part of him knows that she is dead. She did die in that hospital fire.
Well, hold on. I thought the bigger aspect was that Natsuko was taken.
Well, that happens also, but there was the first time, like, he's trying to seek it out to see, like, hey, like, why does this Heron keep mentioning my mom when like she's dead? So what the second time he goes to the tower, those two interests overlap, but he is also there to save his aunt, which we will get into later on. So he's going there. He's at first he despises the heron and just wants to just flat out kill it because he doesn't want to be bothered and reminded of his dead mom. So at first he tries to smack it with like a wooden sword, and then at one point makes a bow and arrow out of a bamboo shoot and feathers that the heron dropped, and and a nail, and tries to fucking kill it himself.
Yeah, good thing the old lady didn't give him the actual bow and arrow, because the fact that it was made from the heron's own feathers probably saved his ass.
It was held together by literal rice paste.
Yeah, it's a completely I mean, he fabricated it himself, and so it's very he's got a nail at the end. And yeah, he's determined to kill this thing. I was actually surprised by how aware he is of the fact that he's being tricked, because that is pretty much his first thought. Oh, I mean, there's no way she's alive. No, sure, I didn't see the body, but like, dude, you're not trustworthy. Even if there is that inkling in his mind.
Heron.
Yeah, and even if there is, like, when he sees the decoy that the heron sets up for him, there is a moment where he does think, oh, wait, is it real? But then he touches it, and obviously she melts into a puddle in horrifying fashion that I'm sure traumatized the two children that I know were in the theater with me. I saw them walk in with their parents. Good thing that's in their nightmares the night after they saw the movie. Along with the dying pelican, I'm sure.
And the fish guts.
Yeah, so plenty of traumatizing imagery to go around for the children and the audience. Hopefully not watching this podcast.
Without subscribing first.
Yeah, I mean... at least do that much.
Yeah, have some common decency, please. So Mahito is going into this tower. He's got his reservations about it, but he's like, you know what? Natsuko is in there, and I'm gonna get her back, and I'm gonna solve this dead mom business once and for all. I'm either gonna like prove without a shadow of a doubt that she's dead, or I'm gonna, maybe I'll put to rest. Maybe I'll find some closure within there or something. I don't know. His curiosity is piqued, but he's being cautious about it.
Yeah, and so he goes into this, very ruinsy place. I'm trying to find the words to describe it. But it's like the circular
it's
room
a very
that the
dilapidated
heron leads
tower.
them to. Well, yeah, the tower
Yeah,
itself is dilapidated and falling apart.
Yeah, on the outside, but on the inside, it's also a magic tower. It's one of those TARDIS, it's bigger on the inside type deals.
Yeah, and he goes into there. It's this big circular room. We get the scene that we described with him and his mom, and the fact that it's a decoy. Then he fights the heron and puts an arrow through its beak, which stops him from being able to fly. It's also a homing arrow because of the stuff with his feather. It's his 7th flight feather, apparently. I don't really know what that means, other than that it stops him from being able to fly.
Yeah, I feel like it was like in a thing for world building that we just never get a proper explanation to. It's one of those things where you'd be like, yeah, of course, his number 7 flight feather. Of course, that's why he.
To me, it just
can't
felt
fly
like
without it.
plot convenience for him to be able to take on the heron. Which, granted, it's far from the worst example of plot convenience you could point out in an animated movie, but it still is very haphazardly explained, I guess. Duh, it's the 7th flight feather. No kidding, it shoots the heron. Like, of course it homes in on the thing and shoots through its beak.
Yeah, and with that, the tower master then appears, and then tells the heron, "You must guide the boy on his journey. You must be the boy and the heron." And we get our then the movie rolled credits, and that was it.
Yeah, the end. By the way, this is something that I sort of neglected to mention, but what I really like about the way the heron is presented is how, like, obviously at first it's a normal heron, but then we slowly get inklings at the reveal of the man behind the mask. We at first get the teeth, which are once again like horrifying and human-like.
I love everything about the heron. He's probably my favorite character in the movie.
I wouldn't say I love him. I more so
aesthetically, I love everything about him.
Well, yeah, I definitely like the aesthetic of
all of his movements, all of his animations.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the way it's animated is impeccable. But like I was saying, at first, we get the teeth, then the nose and the eyes. It's very, like, when he's parting his beak just enough for you to see the beginnings of the features of the man's face. Like, that to me is when the heron is at its most interesting aesthetically. That mixture in the uncanniness of it is really interesting from a visual perspective to me.
Yeah, when he then reverts back to his heron form by swallowing his human parts, and then when they all like almost like a cartoon character eating a large amount of food at once, like fucking Jerry from Tom and Jerry eating a giant piece of food relative to him, and then you see the giant like circular outline of the food in his mouth going down into his stomach before it all like disappears. When he does that to his head and his like facial features, and then it reverts back to his heron form, it's so good. I love it. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, he's a very uncanny character aesthetically. I'm not the biggest fan of his sort of, human question mark design. He is kind of a funny little pudgy dwarf man.
He's just a fucking Ghibli Wario.
Yeah, I mean, literally. Let's see if I can
I love his little I love the contrast of the scary creepy teeth having heron that can just break wood and do all this evil magic to fuck with this one kid, and then the contrast of that he's just a little troll man.
I just realized this is so random. The heron man has the headphone dent on his head.
he's a freak of nature.
He's been gaming
That's why I love
too
him.
much.
You could rest a pair of headphones directly onto his like a little rack on the top of his head.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of the design sense of the heron, I mean, we had to say it at some point, even though it's literally the most obvious thing in the universe. Yeah, the movie's beautiful in terms of visuals and animation. And
wow,
just
a Ghibli
everything.
Movie looks fantastic. In breaking news, the sky is blue.
Yeah, I know it's very, very obvious for sure. Like, there's this one part where the parakeet, one of the big old parakeets, is pedaling on some machine, and like the sheer amount of frames on it, I could not believe my eyes how smooth the animation is. Like, it was for that specific moment, but like even throughout the movie, obviously, it's stunningly rendered in every way.
Yeah, Ghibli is most famous for making these detailed animations for the most seemingly mundane and unnecessary moments, like a character will tap their shoe to get it on better, or will take an action that some may see as unnecessary to do in an animated movie because, well, animation's expensive and hard. Why would you waste so much time having a character do something while realistic is also impractical in the sense of making the movie? So, like, a character tapping their shoe and to get it on better, Because you don't have to even think about that in a live action movie, because it doesn't take a team of animators and artists to have a actor tap their shoe into place. But for an animated movie, it helps them bring the characters to life by having them as close to human as possible, despite them being very fake 2D drawings on a screen, by giving them human elements and giving them human characteristics that are mirror our day-to-day life.
You can even feel it in this specific movie, in like some scenes dedicated to just like one of the ones that stuck out to me was an entire scene, well, not scene obviously, but like an entire shot dedicated to Mahito just grabbing some water and drinking it, rendered in intricate detail in the animation.
I need that little like genie lamp glass of water, whatever is the technical term for it is. I need it. I want to drink exclusively out of that for the rest of my life.
Bro, what I need is the jam and toast he had. Like,
why anime food looks so good?
Like, today I've had a lot of jam and toast, but I have never had jam that spread so smoothly and looked so good. And he got it, like, all over. See, because, I think her name is Himi. Yeah, Himi. Just heaped on so much jam. She's like, you better eat it now. It's gonna drip. Like, I want that much jam on my toast, and I want it to spread that smoothly and look that good, and get it all over my face, too.
Yeah, everyone in the theater was giggling when they saw the amount of jam left over on Mahito's face from eating it. It's just pleasant.
Yeah, that stuff is cool. Another thing I noticed particularly about this movie...
I just want to bring this part up real quick while we're still talking about the toast. It's one of these quirks that's like so doesn't really make much sense when you think about it, but then you accept it because it's just so Ghibli and so fantastical. They just appreciate it. Why did Himi keep the butter in like a thing of lettuce? Like, she unraveled like a head of lettuce, or like a bundle of some kind of leafy green vegetable that was containing a stick of butter.
I mean, honestly, the world that these characters inhabit, like the fantasy one in particular, is so off the walls that after a certain point my brain just started accepting everything it showed me. Yeah, sure.
I failed to understand.
That makes sense.
I failed to understand like the technical side of keeping the technical logistics of keeping the butter in the lettuce, but you know what? Maybe I've just been doing it wrong this whole time. Maybe I should start doing that.
Yeah, taking cues from Ghibli. But what stuck out to me was the sound effects, which are all clear. Like, a lot of them are definitely like recording people doing the actual thing that the characters are doing in the movie. Most disgustingly, when Mahito is eating and they use actual sounds of people eating. That's just nails on a chalkboard to me for some reason. But for all the other sound effects in the movie, like there's one point where the rippling of water sounded so real in the theater that I was like, you could tell me the theater was flooding right now, I would believe you. Because it just felt so authentic. Because they probably did go out to a river and record the sounds of the river and put it in the movie. Like the way that the heron's talons click on stone, and it just feels so right for that sound. It feels exactly like the type of sound they would have.
Towards the end of the movie, this is not a spoiler, by the way, towards the end of the movie where the characters are hopping across these stone platforms across a river, and each character is like hopping across them in a different way.
Yeah, like that level of intricateness to the sound design and animation. The soundtrack had a little too many of similar sounding piano songs to me, but otherwise it did fit the movie really well.
It did fit, and it's another Joe Hisaishi classic. I can't recount the theme off the top of my head. I'd have to probably watch the movie a few more times, or maybe buy the movie's main leitmotifs from from iTunes or something. But I can tell you it's definitely not his best work, because I remember the theme to Castle in the Sky after watching it once. I remember the theme to even a bad movie like Howl's Moving Castle. I remember the main theme to that one.
But there's some theme in
wa-
this movie that I can't recall either, by the way, that you liked, is
Yeah.
what you're saying. To me, like, once again, my only issue with the soundtrack is there were some scenes, like some points in the movie where I was like, in my head, and then you cue the somber, or I guess not somber.
The somber
but-
piano.
Yeah, somber piano. Like, I'd say, okay, and then you cue the somber piano. Oh, there's the somber piano. And
That is
it just-
the Joe
it gets
Hisaishi
really
classic.
predictable
The Joe Hisaishi
after a certain
staple.
point. I just wanted
Ugh, yeah.
anything else at some points.
Ooh,
but-
you're not gonna like. Well, actually, you might like Castle in the Sky because that's more string focused than piano focused.
Yeah, but I mean, otherwise, I like it that there's, and this is something really important. I like that there's so many points in this movie where there just isn't any soundtrack, where nothing is playing, because in a lesser, I mean, this is mostly a TV anime thing, but they feel the need to have music for every single scene where characters are talking. Or like,
Quick, the
almost
viewer's
all of
attention might
them.
slip. Fill the noise with fill the noise. Fill the noise.
Yeah, I mean, there's sometimes where I'm watching a seasonal and going, you didn't need to put a song in this scene. Like, it would fit better if you just had them talking in silence. But with this movie, there's plenty of times when there's just nothing playing in the background. And it's nice. It feels like, this is like an actual snapshot in time. We're actually, there with the characters. And then, sometimes the music comes on at a really pertinent moment. And you're like, oh, this is elevating it. It feels like the soundtrack is an addition as opposed to there because we need a soundtrack. So let's see. We've talked about the soundtrack. I guess we could collect the rest of our non-spoiler thoughts as much as possible. If there is anything left.
I'm trying to think of anything that I can say about the movie. Oh yeah, here's not a spoiler. The Wara Wara. I need a plush of them yesterday.
They're just Kirby. They're literally
just
Kirby.
OG Kirby design. Back when he's black and white, before he was pink. They're all Kirby, and I need
Oh god, it
them.
really is
I
Game
need them
Boy
all.
Kirby. They are very cute. It was also very cute.
Miyazaki
seeing them
loves his cute,
murdered
funny little guys.
and burning and on fire. That was funny.
I'm sure there was a point to, because when they go up, they get born in the real world. They are essentially like, if you've seen the movie Soul, they are the souls of people before they get born, and I guess there must be a greater meaning to the pelicans coming in and eating them before they get born. Maybe that's I don't know. Maybe it's a Planned Parenthood message. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can just rip the bandage off and get into spoilers now. So, spoilers ahoy! You better click off in 5, 4, 3. I ain't counting this shit.
Anyway, all right. So real quick, just to give people a chance, like if this is gonna be the end of the podcast for them, should we give our final like spoiler-free thoughts of it here, or should we just have a Nah, that's gonna be pointless. Yeah, okay. Let's just give final thoughts, general thoughts on the movie here, and before going into spoilers.
God, the worst part about that though is that my thoughts on the movie are very much contingent on the spoilers.
True, same, but just as do we recommend the movie, and why, and without spoiling, why do we recommend the movie or not?
Okay, so if you're a Ghibli completionist and or fan, sure, watch it. Just get it down the hatchet. You'll probably like it more than I did.
Yep. If you're a Ghibli fan, this is definitely a must-see in theaters. Not necessarily because of the quality of the movie, but more of the how often are you going to be able to see Miyazaki's final movie in its first theatrical run in the West.
Yeah, but if you have little to no experience with Miyazaki, Or heaven forbid, you're just some random schmuck who saw a movie on the poster that was animated and went, let's, I bet my kids would like that.
It's either this or Migration.
True. I also saw the trailer while I was watching the movie, and I was astounded at how bad it looked.
This may be a controversial take, but it does, in fact, look like the movie of all time.
Migration seems like just another generic Illumination movie, but we're getting off topic. Yeah. The point is, if you're just looking for something to, heaven forbid, just randomly show your children without any experience with Ghibli, or if you're an anime fan and haven't seen any Ghibli but are like, hey, might as well bite the bullet, it's in theaters, don't. It's not that good, honestly.
Well, that's your
That's
take.
Subjective. I know you like it a lot more.
I like it. I not too much more, but I'm in the camp of, if you really want to go see it in theaters while it's in theaters right now, I have no idea how long, because it's a GKIDS engagement, so it's not going to be super long, but because it's a Miyazaki movie and because of the pedigree and importance of this one, I can imagine they're going to keep it in theaters for probably about a month. That seems about right for a GKIDS go of this caliber. You have time, watch some Ghibli movies. Watch some Miyazaki Ghibli movies specifically. If I were to give some recommendations, watch Nausicaa, watch Castle in the Sky, and watch Spirited Away. And I think those three will be your good ones. If you want a bonus recommendations, if you can, squeeze Ponyo in there. If you just want to feel good about yourself and life, just squeeze Ponyo in there. But if you just only have time for 3 movies before you can go see Boy and the Heron in theaters, go make it Nausicaa, Castle in the Sky, and Spirited Away.
Yeah, so I guess the final verdict is good movie if you can finish your Miyazaki homework.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Don't make this your entry point. You will not appreciate it. Yeah, I'm sorry, Crunchy. I don't mean for these things to keep happening. I had a feeling it was going to be his last movie. I did not know it was going to be like a thematic point regarding his last movie.
Yeah, what's next? You're gonna introduce me to JoJo's at part 6. Ah, duh, he did it. He did it.
Well, to be fair, it's not like doing you a massive disservice.
True. Well, at least JoJo's made complete sense and didn't require any prior knowledge beyond what I already had.
Yeah, thankfully part 6 is structured in a way so that way even if you'll get a better appreciation of Dio from watching parts 1 and 3, but you can get a taste of what he's like in part 6.
Yeah, so with that... Oh, do you have something else you want to say?
No, I was literally about to transition us into spoilers.
Okay, we were both trying to make the same transition simultaneously. Yeah, from this point forward, we're going to be spoiling the entire thing. So as I was saying, I was gonna... Oh, do you want to say something real quick?
I was gonna say something really facetious at the start to anyone who skipped ahead to
go
spoilers, to be like, the Boy and the Heron. More like, the story is barren. I'm just kidding though, but the story is, I guess the more accurate to say the plot. The plot of this movie is much like Alice in Wonderland. Nonsense when you like lay it all out. There is a connecting tissue to the events, but it's like a connecting tissue made of tissue paper and pipe cleaners, and they're soggy. They've got water dumped on them.
There were some points where I was like, wait, why are we... Well, maybe not why are we here, because obviously the overall goal is find Natsuko, but sometimes it would be unclear on why this locale will help us find Natsuko, or whatever, and then the places are so disparate, and at the same time, the connecting thread of, like, getting over... I guess I'll start with this. The movie is I'm killing myself.
Hey, another one. That's 2.
The movie is, on the surface, About about Mahito overcoming the grief of his mother, and more specifically about accepting Natsuko as his new mother, because there's this part where earlier on in the movie he's asked, "Ayo, who's Natsuko?" And he's like, "Yeah, my dad likes her for some reason. It's whatever, man." But as the movie goes on, he starts trying to find her, and then he meets Natsuko, and at first she, in a perplexing turn of events that I guess the idea is she's trying to get him away as fast as possible, but then he says, Natsuko, like Okasan, whatever he said.
Yeah, please,
basically, you're my mother.
Home.
Yeah, and that gets her to be like, all right, fine. You won me over. You called me mom, and therefore I will.
Before that, just before that, she says, "Go away. I hate you."
Yeah. So, I mean,
and I didn't really understand that.
So my read of it, and this is still my read of it. There is an asterisk, but my read is she was trying to get him away as fast as possible for whatever, because she does, she's pregnant, right? And so she's just gonna slow him down. But then calling her mother gets her to be like, okay, I'll join. And that complicates things a little bit. Because why is it that calling her mother would get her to undo this plan of getting him away as fast as possible? That would not really compute. I guess she would just be so flattered that she ditched the plan, is what I got. Is definitely it's iffy in the way that it's relayed to the audience.
Here is my Matt Pat film theory that I think I may have pieced it together, but I'm not certain of it. So throughout before she goes to the tower, which is a whole thing that we're gonna get into shortly. Excuse me. So before she goes to the tower, she is not Natsuko, Mahito's mom's sister. She is her aunt, and she is married now to the Mahito's dad. God damn it, I feel a sneeze coming on. That's why I'm mincing my words here. Okay, I think I pulled it back. So they remarried. I was a little unclear on if the baby that she's carrying is either his father's, or like Mahito's dad, she had a spouse or a significant other that died or is maybe separated from, but she was pregnant at the time, and they're just gonna have the baby together. It's either that or he did impregnate her. I don't recall if the movie ever specified.
I don't recall that either, but I would assume it's Mahito's dad's. If I had to hazard a guess.
Yeah, I guess there's more evidence towards that than the other way, so I guess that's feasible. So Mahito he doesn't outright say it, but you can tell that he's a little bothered by his dad's ability to move on so quickly, especially when considering that she looks very similar, naturally because they're siblings, looks very similar to his mother. So he's like a little unsettled by the whole thing. He's not able to process it immediately. He's still grieving, and it's weird to have a woman who looks quite similar but not quite exactly the same as his true mother. So he is not cold or callous to her, but does not particularly enjoy being around her either. He's just going through the motions, and you can tell that Natsuko feels like she wants to connect with her nephew turned son-in-law, and wants to form a genuine mother-son connection. But he ain't having that shit. So she gets a little despondent, and she's going through the stages of childbirth. Before she goes to the tower, she's been suffering from morning sickness. Uh, and for some reason, and they don't ever, I don't think, fully explain why. And that's one of the things that bothers me about this
finishing the movie for me to realize that they didn't explain what you're about to say. Go ahead.
Yeah. We see her at one point walking towards the tower. Mahito sees her walking towards the tower after he had been told, hey, you shouldn't be going towards that tower. It was like just before he was going to enter it the first time, but then Natsuko and the 7 old ladies found him and tried, hey, come on, come home now. We've been looking for you all day, kid. So when she goes there, I was under the impression that she, like, knew something that we didn't, because there's also a scene in the movie where Mahito is being approached by the Heron again, and he's, like, doing some magic mojo jojo shit to him, covering him with frogs and being like, hey, join us, your presence is requested. And then Natsuko sees this and pulls out a bow and shoots a special tuning fork like arrow into the water that scares off the Heron and all of the little magic guys that are trying to pull away Mahito. And this caused Mahito to faint. And then when he wakes up, the old ladies act like it was just a dream. But then he goes to the closet where he found the little wood sword thing that he was going to bash the Heron over the head with, that the Heron ended up breaking with his teeth. And when he goes to pull it out, he sees that the sword is at first 100% intact, like it never broke in the first place. But then after he picks it up, it immediately like falls apart, like it had been almost like it had been like Jojo Zawarudoed. Is 1 second it was fine, but then time froze. Then just start planning to punch it, and it shattered. So
I'm also still
clearly
not sure
something
why
fishy's
that
going
happens. Honestly, with the sword.
I mean, I can only imagine that the things that happened weren't a dream. Like maybe events happened not quite the same as I remembered it. I doubt that they hastily tried to re-glue the sword together. But like, you expect me to like have that happen, and then you expect me to believe that Natsuko did not fire that arrow into the water? That seems a bit like hard to believe, considering everything that happens in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she had to have seen what was happening and fired the arrow, but I'm just not sure where the sword factors in, why it fell apart. Because I mean, like you said, it's difficult to believe that she would just scramble to glue it back together inexplicably.
Guys, we have to make sure he does not find out about the tower. I will not. No one gets to eat tonight until every splinter of that sword is picked up and 100% pristinely glued back together. Because before it falls apart again, it looks like it had never broken in the first place. And more like it decays the second time, as opposed to violently shatters.
Yeah, so yet another weird thing in this movie.
Yeah, so because of that, I was under the impression that Natsuko must have known something that Mahito didn't about the tower, that she was purposely keeping from him. Like maybe she knew some secrets about the tower, that she knew more than she let on. So she goes there, and maybe I was under the pretense that, okay, maybe she knows something about Mahito's mom that Mahito doesn't, and maybe some part of her is in that tower, or maybe she really did die, but her soul is residing within that tower, because, you know, the souls of the dead is a theme in some Ghibli movies, especially Miyazaki ones. So maybe she was gonna go try to make connection with Mahito's dead mom or her dead sister, and maybe try to like ask for, I don't know, advice about like, hey, Mahito's mom / my sister, how do I connect with your son? And how do I don't know what to do to get him to acknowledge me as his mother. Like, I need to seek your help. Or maybe I'm just sad because my sister's dead, and maybe this will be my only chance to talk to you again.
Yeah, but we don't really get a solid explanation of why she went to the tower, only that she did go to it and get trapped.
Yeah, because the next time we see her, she's in this bed with this little mobile above her head of little paper birds that like when Mahito tries to pull her out to get her to, hey, come on, Natsuko, let's go home, let's get out of here, Scoob. The paper mobile gets all violent and they grow and start wrapping, like almost like mummifying the two of them. And while Mahito's trying to pull her away, Natsuko's like, no, Mahito, you shouldn't come here, go, leave. And then when she drops the I hate you, I was just like, are we gonna pull like a Suzume and there's some hidden resentment, like familial resentment that we're not properly exploring here, or we're about to explore? But nope, I guess it was just a way to get him to leave, because I can't give you a proper reason that is a satisfying explanation as to why she would at all hate Mahito. It's not his fault that her sister died.
So basically, we have the same game theory is what we're going with.
Yeah, so I can only imagine that maybe either that or him trying to pull her away would keep her from finding his mom. I'm not sure, because she was pregnant, and I thought she was going to give birth to the kid inside the tower. Maybe that was another idea I had rolling around in my head, like, okay, maybe she has to give birth to this kid within the tower for some reason. I don't know why, but maybe that'll be explained. But that's not the case, because she gives birth to the kid at the very end of the movie when all's said and done.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's extremely poorly explained, honestly.
That's kind of a problem when that's one of the primary motivators of your movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's other stuff that I don't quite get. Yo, I'll let you continue real quick.
I was just gonna say, because on rewatches now, I'm gonna know, like, oh, okay, yeah, here's the entire reason of your journey, Mahito. We're not gonna get a proper explanation for it, so it's gonna be harder to care on rewatch. When I now know ahead of time that's not gonna receive a satisfying conclusion or wrap up.
Yeah, another thing that sticks out to me is, like, I don't quite get why it's here and what its point is in relation to the rest of the movie. So, like you were saying about the little white Kirby's, the
Wara
Wara.
Did you just call them the Wawas?
I forgot what they were called.
Yes, they are in fact modeled after the the incredibly convenient gas station. High quality gas station.
I also don't know anything about that gas station.
Wait, have you never heard of Wawa?
I feel, now that you're saying it, I feel like I've heard of it, but I have never been to one.
You've never been to a Wawa? I guess you do live in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, but god, there's gotta be a Wawa nearby. We'll have to check after the podcast.
I have literally never seen a Wawa's in my life. Not that I can recall, anyway.
Well, we'll put a pin in that one for now, then.
Yeah, but, you know, the Kirby things are the souls that, you know, go up to, go up to the sky, into the real world, and they become real boys and girls. And others. We don't discriminate on this podcast. And, you know, obviously there's the stuff with the... with them getting eaten and burned, and then there's the thing with the pelican or heron, one of those birds, seabird, and you know he's dying, pelican,
yeah,
and he's dying, and he basically goes on this whole tangent about how, hey yo, the wada wada, like, we need to eat those to survive, so it's like this realization that they're not cruel. They're just trying to live in their own way, right? Like, the seas don't have things to eat, so we need to wait for the wada wadas to go into the sky. But then we get burned by Himi. It's like, that's kind of cringe. And now I'm burning and I'm about to die. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what does this have to do with anything? And I've been thinking about it a lot. Because, okay, when I first got to it, I thought the movie would be more about life and death, maybe, because, it starts off with the death of his mother. So maybe we'll get more stuff about the nature of life. and the nature of
The
circle
Japanese
of life.
the Japanese title is quite literally "How do you live?"
Yeah, but uh, I just I don't really get it. I don't really get why it's here. Do you have any theory? I feel like there has to be a reason. There
Yeah,
has to be something.
if I were to take a shot at explaining it, I would say it's giving justification to different viewpoints, cuz or like maybe it's not necessarily a one-to-one thing for humans, maybe it's like a thing for of about nature and like how nature can do some seemingly cruel things, but then at the end of the day you understand that it's not doing it out of malice, it's doing it out of like just because it's exactly what they have like tsunamis will happen not because the oceans got it out for us, but because the shifting of the tectonic plates and tides and whatnot. Natural disasters happen not because of necessarily sometimes they can be caused by some man-made influence, but like on average, natural disasters when they happen by naturally they can seem like cruel and heartless. Like, for example, we were talking about it before the podcast, giving reference to Suzume, because we had never heard of the 2011 Japanese tsunami that claimed the lives of about 20,000 innocent Japanese people, but that was not that was just the Earth doing its thing, and it just it was a tragedy to be sure, but it's not like who's to blame. It's not like a terrorist attack or a school shooting or a war where we can put the blame on one side. The Pelicans say flat out like, hey, listen, we they can't. I believe the Pelicans said something about like where they came from. They can no longer go to where they came from, or like they were cast out of
they
a
did
place.
say that.
Yeah, and so the Warawara are literally the only thing they can consume, or they will starve and die. So maybe it's the Earth. The Pelicans are like the Earth, or like nature, and sometimes it will just claim human lives, not out of malice, but out of just because that's what it does sometimes. And while it does, it is painful and it can be a tragedy. It's just a part of life that's not necessarily good or bad, but just is.
That does make sense with the proposition shown in the finale, where it's his grandpa. His great grandpa. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, his great granduncle, his grunkle Stan. Yeah,
and he gives him the proposition, "Ayo, boyo, you can." And this is getting way later, I know, but I'll touch on the surface level aspects for now. Now, you can stack up your own tower and bring balance.
Would you like to play
world.
Jenga with me?
And basically make it so that with his influence and his power, because he's part of the bloodline, which is established, he's the only one who can stack the tower properly. And if he were to do that, this world would be at peace. It would be, in fact, more peaceful and harmonic than the real world. And the idea is, would you choose to live here as this world's king and have this place with infinite harmony, essentially? Or would you go back home to this unfair and unjust world? And in a sense, if you look at it through that lens, the pelican dying, does make more sense, admittedly, now that you've pointed it out, because that's an example of the indifference of nature, the lack of, how do I put this? I guess I can just say
it's a theme commonly explored by Miyazaki. He's a very nature, like he's very pro nature in his movies. He's famously pro nature, anti-war, and he is even in his first Ghibli movie, well, non-Ghibli movie, but Nausicaa has been culturally appropriated as a Ghibli movie. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Basically, the point of that movie is that if humanity does not get along with the planet and does not try to live in harmony with it and try to take advantage of it, the Earth will deem us a cancer and it will throw us off. It will burn us to the ground. Do anything to get rid of us to ensure its own survival. But if we treat it with respect and the love that it deserves, because of how inherently beautiful the planet Earth is, then we as humanity will thrive. At the very least, we are more likely to succeed than we are to fail.
Yeah, and that idea of the I guess it's a slightly different reading that I'm having for this specific scene. The callousness of nature, I guess in that sense, where things don't necessarily happen because this good, this evil, like you were saying. It's because nature is that way. And by human standards, that's unjust. A lion just attacking a person and killing them. To us, that's a tragedy. To the lion, that's just its next meal. And so, why would you return to that world when that can just happen?
Rest in peace, Harambe, never forget.
Exactly. And yeah, and that idea is actually one that resonates with me, but we'll probably get into that more once we actually get to a full-on discussion of the finale.
Yeah, because I have some things to say about the finale.
I too have some things to say about the finale.
So we didn't really touch on, because it is kind of a spoiler, because she shows up in the trailers, but the reveal of who she is a spoiler. We haven't touched on Kiriko.
Yeah, so Kiriko is essentially one of the grandmas. This is one that he brought along with him and was shivering and reluctant the entire time, but nonetheless on the journey with him. And I'm pretty sure she was the one named Kiriko, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to make absolutely sure I wasn't completely butchering this movie's plot, because you know how I am with names. But
yeah,
then there's this girl, Kiriko, and Mahito gets the sense that her name is also Kiriko. Because this world is sort of, in a weird way, a reflection of the circumstances around the tower being built. And I mean, they're old and withered, and his great-granduncle is also old and withered, and so he probably knew them in the real world, I would imagine. Or, there's something like that. I mean, they tell stories about him. And so, yeah, the Kiriko is essentially the alternate world version, maybe even a younger version of Kiriko the grandma in the real world.
Yeah, and so she, in this world, is a seafaring what was her job again? Did she did she have like a purpose, or was she just like living by herself?
I'm not exactly sure, but she does have a cool fire whip thing that she makes.
Yeah, I do remember that. And I remember she was with the WWII, and I remember they needed to like turn a big wooden wheel.
Yeah, so she does help guide the WWII to their destination. And so that could be one of her that could be her main job, because they're also helping the WWII grow up to the point where they're able to fly.
Oh, right. Because the reason, one of the reasons why she catches the fish is to feed them.
Yeah. And
okay, I remember
so
now.
she's a seafarer that feeds the WWII and basically helps them make it to the surface.
Okay, so I guess I know we moved on from the talk of the pelican, but I just realized that maybe unironically my Planned Parenthood thing may have been a little closer on the mark than I realized, because it could also be a metaphor for somehow some people could view Planned Parenthood as evil, and some could view it as well, is it evil if it is? Should we not have the choice?
I mean, you could probably get that reading. It it does seem a little
I'm just now
far-flung,
thinking
but it is
about
funny.
that. I don't know. I hesitate to think that's the more accurate depiction, because it's not like Miyazaki to touch on more timely themes, especially one like that. He definitely likes his more broader like wide-reaching sensibilities, and definitely
Yeah,
he
the
likes
the
to fall
filthy
back on
centrist.
anti-war pro nature. Yeah. I mean, he's very not to say that it's not politically, he's very anti-war, but he's very nuanced in his anti-war takes.
Yeah, so Kiriko, she's probably weirdly enough one of the characters I had the most fun with. Well, he only really meets two people in his journey, Kiriko and Hime. And she's just like this more like outgoing, sort of middle-aged seafarer woman, and I think she has a fun personality. And
Yeah, I was sad that when she wasn't gonna stick around for the rest of the journey.
I feel like she would have been a very fun addition to the gang to continue throughout the journey. At the very least, I liked her more than Hime, TBH.
Yeah, and as soon as Hime, as soon as it was established that Kiriko was the same woman from the grandma that was following him around, and then when Hime appeared in the fire, I immediately was like, oh, okay, that's Mahito's mom.
Yeah, it's the same imagery, although I actually didn't pick up on the fact that she was his mom. Maybe my media
when
literacy
she first showed up
is
and
not as
started
honed.
shooting fire. When she first showed up and started shooting fire out of nowhere, I didn't pick up on it because that was before. I think
Well, those are just fireworks.
Was that before? Yeah,
that was before.
And was that? Yeah, well, that was before Kiriko, like was told it, or Mahito figured out her name, right?
Wait, no, the stuff with the fireworks was after. I'm fairly sure.
I'm not 100% on it, but as soon as I guess as soon as I fully internalized that Kiriko and that other Kiriko were one and the same, then as soon as in a really cool shot, mind you, Hime appears in a big thing of fire and like with just her face, and then pulls Mahito in through the fire to teleport, and it turns out he just like teleported through a fireplace. That was a cool shot, but as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, because now that we've established that these people are just the same person, just transformed into someone younger, then Mahito's mom, who died in a fire, and now here's this girl who appears in fire and has a interest in Mahito. Yeah, that's the mom.
Honestly, with the whole mirror world motif, I probably should have figured it out sooner. Because that is the idea behind it. There's literally small dolls of all 7 grandmas in Kiriko's room.
Yeah, and so when we're introduced to Hime, I at first I thought she was just gonna be, before I figured out that she was the mom, I thought she was just gonna be the love interest for Mahito, that they would then go on the rest of the journey together, and she would be like the magic fire mage guide for him. With her being the mom, I failed to understand her purpose in the narrative.
She just kind of is his mom.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I get the in-universe reason why it's her mom, why she has to go back to her time, because when she there's a part when we cut back to the real world with Mahito's dad and one of the old ladies. She tells a story about the tower and how one day the mom went over to the tower and she went missing for like, I forget how long, but I think she mentioned like a significant amount of time.
It was a year, I'm fairly sure.
Oh yeah, a whole year. Yeah, and so then when she came back, She came back just the same. Like it didn't even look like she was gone a day. So with that, and then the real reveal that this is kind of a time travel story as well. It's a perfectly closed off time loop, I suppose, but I still fail to understand why this had to be time travel specifically.
It doesn't really do much thematically, is the issue, right? Like,
Yeah,
I just don't get why.
I a day later, this is 24 hours from both of us having seen the movie at the time of recording this. I fail to understand like what a young mom adds to the story. Like she doesn't really like is it to give Mahito closure because they have like one last interaction together? Like she cooks for him and makes him that, delicious Ghibli food, but I didn't really see that as anything, like, even with the benefit of hindsight, I don't see that as anything, like, too important to the narrative or, like, thematically resonant. I just saw that as, two characters eating together.
I mean, I guess this gets into another issue that I brought up earlier with Mahito just not being that compelling to me. I feel like this idea of, like, maybe he realized earlier on that she was his mother, and maybe, having that interaction actually happen would maybe bring, more emotions out of me for the arc, although in a sense would also be, I don't know, because in a sense I also do think about the version of the story where he does just never see his mom again, and then it's more like real life. But even then, like, I don't know, just the idea of, I feel like there was some sort of emotion that the arc was trying to pull out of me that just didn't reach me, that maybe there was a scene where Miyazaki should have unpacked those emotions a little more than he did. And this movie absolutely had the runtime for it. It's 2 hours. There was absolutely the time to really unpack his emotional hangups in a way that was more, I guess explicit would be what I'd say, more explicitly unpack those emotions and to make me care about it more. But as is, he sort of does spend a lot of the movie, specifically on the journey, just the sort of stern, serious, stoic boy.
Yeah, and
I don't think he has particularly good chemistry with most of the other characters either.
I like his chemistry with the Heron. The best part, the funniest moment in the whole movie is when he's trying to get the Heron to fly again, and he's like, okay, well, in order to fly, you have to plug the hole in my beak that you made with that arrow. So he is like taking a stick and whittling it and measuring it by like shoving it in the hole to get the proper size and have it fit just right. And the Heron man's just like, hey, don't go too far, but don't make it too little either.
Wow,
so
shoving things in holes in a kid's movie. Shame on you, Miyazaki.
Yeah, they gotta report this to pluggedin.com so those parents can know the truth before they take their kids to see that movie.
Yeah, it was that scene and not the one with the dying pelican. That's the reason why this movie
gutting
is
of
not
the fish and all of its, and Mahito getting sprayed with its blood and having the guts spill out.
Yeah, I mean those were fine. It's plugging the hole.
Or even Mahito just bashing self-harming himself with a rock and bleeding profusely.
There is self-harm in this kid's movie. Let that sink in.
I mean, well, yeah, that just goes to show that Japanese kids movies go much harder than ours. If we're comparing what they deem appropriate, maybe they have more faith in them.
I mean, yeah, considering that. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory given what's
considering that Weekly Shonen Jump is
an anime
is a popular thing.
But as you were saying about the scene.
Yeah, so when Mahito's fiddling with the hole, and the first time that he plugs it in, and then the Heron is like, don't forget, kid, we are neither friends nor allies, and I have no intention of leading you on, and maybe I'll just leave you right here. And like, wait a minute, hold on, this the hole is kind of like coming jutting into my mouth and making it a little hard to speak. And then he takes the hole out and whittles it again. And then they just recycle the same shot of him being like, "Hey, come on, now don't make it so small that's not gonna plug the hole anymore." And that got the theater laughing, myself as well. That was definitely the funniest part of the movie, where they
God,
just...
what kind of theater were you in? Mine was silent the entire time. I heard like a few nose exhales from the people beside me.
It wasn't like it wasn't laugh out loud funny, but it definitely got people, audibly chuckle laughing.
Yeah. Although I'm not 100%
How many
sure.
people were in your theater?
I mean, there were a fair few. There were people on both sides of me in my row, so there was enough people
same.
for that to be the case.
I would say in my theater, including myself, there were about 30 people.
Probably less than that for mine, maybe 15 to 20.
Do you think that might be because of where you lived, or maybe because you saw it at 10:10 p.m., right?
9:30, and it went until like I mean, the movie itself
11:30.
started at 9:50, and so it went on until 11:50.
Okay. So yeah, that's probably more of a reason. I saw it at about 4:30 p.m.
Yeah, and my sleep schedule is so messed up that I still felt wide awake at midnight. Let that sink in.
I actually got a good night's sleep this past night. I fell asleep at 1, woke up at 9, felt refreshed.
God, waking up feeling refreshed is real? I thought it was a myth that people made up.
Well, if you get a good 8 hours of sleep.
I get a good 8 hours
so
of sleep and I still feel like garbage when I wake up.
Well, that sounds like a skill issue, buddy. What the fuck were we talking about just now?
Yeah, the gag with the Heron.
Yeah, the
plugging
gag
its hole.
Yeah, the funny hole plug. And what point were we making before that?
You were saying that it was the funniest part of the movie, and before that I was saying that Mahito doesn't have a lot of good chemistry with most of the characters.
Oh, yeah. I think with the Heron he has good chemistry, and I hesitate to say he has bad chemistry with any of that. He's not like a plank of wood. He does have some insightful interactions with Kiriko and Himi and the Heron, and even his great uncle. But like, I will say they're definitely far from the interactions that you see in like Castle in the Sky or Ponyo or Nazca or Spirited Away. All better Ghibli movies by my regard.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I feel like Mahito not being that good of a character to me is one of the big things holding me back from really liking it. It seems you got more out of him than I did, even. And
well, all of my investment in him was banking on there being like a big emotional climax where he like the stoicism finally breaks down and he is finally like brought to tears that like my mother like really is gone, and like maybe I knew it all along, but like now he finally has to let down the emotional walls and finally just like grieve and not just try to like avoid the world and avoid his new position in life. But we don't really get that.
I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, I was describing a very similar scene in my head with, what could happen if he figured out earlier that Himi was his mom. And yeah, like, that could have been peak, but really it's just, yeah, I don't know, I just don't like Mahito as a protagonist. He's, I don't mind his stoicism in a vacuum, but I feel like his chemistry could have been better with a lot of the characters. His arc is, at least, it logically makes sense, but it doesn't really close it out all that well. And overall, like, he has a personality, and I do, acknowledge that and see what they were going for. But to me, like, it could have all been executed a whole lot better. And as a protagonist, I'm not very partial to him.
I'm not like as dismissing of him as you are, but I agree with a lot of the points that you're making. I was waiting for a big emotional payoff that never really happens.
Yeah.
So in the interest of time, because this podcast is coming up on the 2-hour mark, and I would rather that this does not go longer than the movie itself. So we'll now talk about the ending, and if we had anything else to say, they'll just have to. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk about these movies another time.
Yeah, so Mahito gets captured by birds, giant birds, but while he's captured, he gets a dream. It's from his great granduncle, and he's like, "Hey yo, bro, you gotta play some Jenga with me, my fella. It's really fun, trust me, on God."
Yeah, we're gonna play the highest stakes game of Jenga in the world.
Yeah, so the idea is that the great grandfather, he taps the Jenga tower he's built, and it just barely stays balanced. He's like, "Yo, my time to reign isn't much longer. My brother in Christ, you gotta come over here." And so he does come over there, along with the Bird King and Himi, who's been captured and put in a glass container, much like Snow White, if I'm getting that right.
Ooh, true.
That was the first thing that came to my mind.
I did not think about that till now. I believe the granduncle at first was trying to, and because it's time travel, so it's a little wonky to wrap your head around at first go, but the granduncle was at first being like, because it has to be a member of the bloodline, I will try to recruit Himi as my successor, and if that doesn't work, then Mahito, you're up next, pal.
Yeah, and he basically Mahito is the one. I don't actually remember him saying anything about Hime, but I could be just blanking and having dementia brain again.
I feel like that had to have been why else would the parakeets bring her to the granduncle?
True.
I guess maybe it was also to lure. Maybe it was to lure Mahito there. I'm not sure. I could have sworn that was part of his plan to be like, give Hime.
I feel like that makes more
option.
sense to like they give him Hime to rebuild the tower, in exchange for them eventually getting like maintaining power in the new balance that is established, because that is expressly their goal. But Mahito is also here, and so he approaches his grandfather on those little stones. He's like, "My brother in Christ, rebuild the tower. Add your own stone and make it not wobbly anymore." Because in doing so, the idea is he'll be essentially the king of this realm and be able to expunge the evils that he's encountered of birds with knives that want to cook him up and eat him.
That they comically bash over the head and knock out hilariously.
Yeah, and fucking the pelican has this terrible disguise on that looks vaguely like the birds, but they're so stupid that it fools them.
Yeah.
But what Mahito decides, okay, you can take the reins from here.
Yeah, so the granduncle's like, all right, you can add. I give you the choice, Mahito. You can either add your own block to the tower and stay within the tower in this world of peace and harmony that you can create by your own hand, or if you want, you can go back to the imperfect real world and invite all of the trouble and heartbreak and danger and all the stuff that comes along with it. It's your choice, bro. I'm not gonna hold you captive forever. I'm giving you the option. You can either let this world fade and move on with your life, or you can stay and make it the best one you possibly can. Maybe even better than one I had made. So Mahito, after some deliberation, is like, I can't do it because I am not free. You said I had to be free of malice to do so. I am not I'm not free of malice. This scar from the wound that I gave myself is proof of the malice that still exists within me. So I think I will go live in the real world, where I think I will give that a shot, and like an earnest shot, because I didn't, with my mom dead, I didn't really do that before. But now that I have my aunt back, I'm gonna get a whole new lease on life. I'm gonna give this one an honest to goodness try. And so then the parakeet king, who had fallen behind them, is like, hey, you're gonna leave the fate of our world to a bunch of stones to a kid? The bullshit, I'll just do it myself, and stacks them. But then they all fall over, and the tower starts falling apart, and the world starts disappearing, and they all go back to their own times. Well, at least Himi goes back to when she opened the door to the tower as a child, and I guess goes back to her life knowing that she's gonna give birth to Mahito. Well, granted, there is an in-universe explanation that people who leave the who go to the tower but then leave it tend to forget their time in the tower, and the only reason that Mahito may remember is because he specifically took a piece of like one of those blocks with him, and I guess that will give him the power to remember. In case you
I didn't get that implication. Like, he does have the memorabilia. Granted, one of them turns back into Himiko. But no, not Himiko, Kiriko. I have dementia.
Yeah, but it's right before the heron disappears in the flock of parakeets. He tells Mahito, like, that stone doesn't have a lot of power left, and you shouldn't remember anyway after long enough. Everyone who comes to this tower will always forget it, and like I'm sure you'll be no exception. And then leaves.
Yeah, and so eventually he forgets his time at the tower.
Does he? Does he explicitly state?
Well,
that he
doesn't explicitly state he forgot, but like that's the only thing they could be alluding to. There's no. Well,
why else would they make a point to him keeping a piece of it with him? Why else would they have him do that?
Well, he's keeping the piece with him, sure, but the Heron explicitly says, yeah, maybe that'll keep your memories for a little longer, but you're gonna forget eventually. I feel like it's a bit of a stretch to believe that.
Well, only 2 years have passed since the tower fell and the ending scene of the movie. Very jarring, by the way, where it just is him leaving his room to go out with his family and then slowly fades to credits.
I mean, he could very well still remember at that point, but the point is still that he will eventually forget it, like, no matter what.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to tie into what the ending of the movie might mean. And this is I've seen this interpretation floating around online, and it's one possible one, and it's the one that I feel like would be the most satisfying, at least from a creative standpoint. But first I want to hear your interpretation of it, because I'm very curious to see what it is coming from a Ghibli virgin.
All right, so I have two main readings of the movie, and they're both looking at the ending from different perspectives. First, a literal one, and then a metatextual perspective. I'll first start with the literal one, because that makes the most intuitive sense. Mahito is essentially given the option to, A, fix this small little bubble world where, he's the king, he can make sure that nothing terrible happens. And although he rejects it in part because of his malice, the other part of it is, I have friends, my guy. He talks about Kiriko and Himi, who he's brought along on the trip. Himi's literally just his mom, so, basically, because it's a mirror world, they all also exist in the real world. So he's essentially saying,
except for his mom in real life, in his present time,
but she was alive at one point, is the idea. And so, hey, I met these friends on my journey. So in the real world, therefore, like, the implication is I can meet more people. So it doesn't matter per se that the world is uncaring and callous and that terrible things like war happen, because at the end of the day, you can still find friends to weather through the storm. Whereas in this place, it's much more limited, there's less people. Most of them are birds anyway, just a bunch of parakeets with knives,
That
and although it's unclear just how much power he has over the world. The sense that I get is, judging from what the great grandfather has, or great grand uncle rather, has done with it, it's probably not like almost certainly not god levels of power. It's very limited, I would imagine, even considering the great granduncle's age and relative, loss of power because of that age. And so he's basically saying, I would rather be in a place with friends and the people I care about and the ability to meet more people I care about than have this small bubble world where I can, fix all this world's problems, but perhaps be more isolated. And that's at least the literal interpretation that I have. And the reason why I come to it is that that's basically my entire philosophy on life. I am pretty much the most pessimistic person I know. And so, to me, the idea of, okay, well, how do you survive a world where terrible things happen is a pertinent one. I've said pertinent twice in this podcast. Anyway, but the answer that I've come to, and that this movie seems to come to, is, Ayo, friendship. Have people there with you, because that is pretty much the most fundamental human drive that is not literally like eating and drinking and having shelter. Like, after those things comes the ability to talk to other people on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's very important. You'll literally go
and then
insane
higher than that
without
is,
other people.
Giant anime titties.
Precisely. And so, that's the reading that I get from the literal plot of the movie. But obviously there's the meta text that this is Miyazaki's final movie. And in that sense, you can read it a different way. That this little bubble world, at least this is what I was thinking, that the little bubble world he creates represents Miyazaki's filmography. This place where you can escape from the world for just a small little time, where it's all sorts of fairyland and you can, frolic in the flowers or whatever. And it's essentially this idea of, I'm old and withered, I'm getting dementia in a few years, I can't maintain this world. And he's essentially rejecting the idea that it should continue. It is the read that I got, where it's this idea of, should someone keep making more Miyazaki-esque movies officially, or something like that. Or maybe it's not literally that, but it's this idea that my time has come, it's time for this world to end. And he does so in, basically by having the Parakeet King slice the bricks in half, thereby literally like rending what is left of the world and causing it to completely implode in on itself and no longer exist. And thus marks the end of his filmography. And with that reading, you can also look into lines like, I still have malice, and therefore I can't, be the one to take on this world. Ooh, what could that mean? Maybe he wants to, fix up some of his real life relationships. I don't want to get too parasocial in reading into what Miyazaki's life is like, or what he might have meant by things. But with that meta text in mind, you can probably come to your own conclusions about certain lines in that part of the film.
Yeah, so for me, with the literal interpretation of it, it's like literally one for one of yours, because I feel like that's what they were intending with the face value of it. For your assertion that he is supposed to represent himself with the granduncle thing, I do think that is supposed to be a part of it. I've seen two differing ideologies. One of them being about, how kind of like how you described, how it could be like Mahito can represent the audience, and how like you can either take after my stead, or like create your own works of art, and maybe even trod down the path that I've trodden down, if you want to go down that route with your life. Or Do you want to just do something else? Would you rather just exist in a world that have been happy to have existed in a world that I have created, but then go out and continue living the rest of your life doing like something else? Maybe you don't even necessarily need to create art like Miyazaki has. You can just do like whatever you do with your life is your choice. It's just like his final like message to the audience. But the way I interpret it, and maybe this is incorrect, but I've seen this going around online, and I like this for kind of like how the spice that it represents. I think that much like with this last interpretation, the old granduncle is Miyazaki, but instead of directly an audience stand-in, Mahito is a stand-in for Goro Miyazaki. And this is him passing down, like giving, like indirectly asking his son, hey, listen, Goro, my boy, I have left a legacy that is almost impossible for any person to follow up on. Like, this is like asking Tom Brady Jr. to go on and have a better quarterback performance than the greatest one of if not the greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time. This is like the son of Michael Jackson Jr. being like, "Hey, go and have a pop career that is as as great as mine, if not greater. I dare you, kid." But now here we have Goro Miyazaki, who has been raised by his father to appreciate film and art, especially anime, and the animation medium. And here we have a guy who has a few movies under his belt. However, two of them are commonly considered to be the worst Ghibli movies of all time, and like blemishes on the legendary filmography, the catalog, the library, the saint. Well, what the fuck is that fancy ass library that almost got burned down that one time called? Whatever that one is. That library. Two massive stains, and they're like credited to him, the son of the God King. So, and Hayao has not made any secret to be like, he has a very estranged, well, maybe not maybe I'm exaggerating it, but we have publicly seen in documentaries and like a news broadcast that in front of cameras, he has straight up gotten out of his chair the first time he's seen his son's movie and walked out to just have a smoke and say he is not yet ready. Like, imagine your father, like, without even having the legacy that he has. Like, if you tried to do something to like you put your best foot forward into, and you tried your hardest, and you presented something like that to your dad, and then your dad just like said, "Son, you're not ready," and it's just fucking like walked out on you. Imagine the fucking like heartbreak of that. And Hayao has done that to his son, and maybe this is his way of trying to extend some kind of like olive branch to his kid. Like, hey, listen, Goro, I have created a legacy that so few people can even hope to match, even outside of my bloodline. I present to you a choice, because I can't, ultimately at the end of the day, at one point I will die, and what you choose to do with your life, it will ultimately come down to you, my son. So it gave you this choice. Would you like to add your block to my to the Ghibli legacy, and make this your path in life to become, if not at the very least the next Hayao Miyazaki, then the first Goro Miyazaki, to try to follow in my footsteps? Because I feel like Goro is, because of his position as his son, is now, like, whether he likes it to or not, if he decides to become a filmmaker like his father, he will at every turn be compared to his father. Because, like, how can you not? Like, you could try to, but at the end of the day, you're comparing the son of the God King to the God King himself. And it's not a favorable comparison, regardless of, like, how much, the exact points of which you rate his movies. The fact is, he's made so many influential impactful ones over the span of fucking decades. Like, it's coming up to half a century of movie making. So he's saying to his son, you can either keep going at this rate, maybe one day you will reach heights that I have reached, maybe even surpass them. Right now seems unlikely because he hasn't made too many banger movies and made 2 bona fide stinkers, but including Earwig and the Witch, the worst Ghibli movie. But you can either do that, Goro, or you can do your own thing. You don't have to feel and beholden to my name and my legacy. And this is him extending an olive branch, like, you can follow in my footsteps, or you can walk away from this whole filmmaking thing. If you decide this is not what you want to do, I will hold no ill will against you. Don't feel like you have to live up to my legacy. Almost like if I am right in this assertion, and and the ending is like his way of trying to make amends or apologize to his son for the way he has treated him and his filmmaking career, I like that interpretation even more than the literal one.
Yeah, I think both of the metatextual interpretations are interesting. The Goro one definitely did not come to my mind, although I did.
Well, that part of that reason is because you do have to be familiar with Miyazaki and his history. Because
I do know that he has an estranged, like you said, strained relationship with his son.
Yeah, strained is a better word. Like, he's not like distant from his son, but he's not close to him either.
Yeah, and I mean, I've obviously heard of that because those clips are everywhere. And
yeah, like, Hayao, for as much of a legendary filmmaker he is, as a person, he's kind of an eccentric dickhead. Because another one clip that at the time people lauded as like, oh yeah, Hayao, he gets it, man. When he was presented with that one clip of the monster moving in 3D animation of that,
I've seen that clip.
Yeah, and then it's the famous anime was a mistake. Obviously, that part was was added in as a meme, but like he did like was disgusted by the idea of computer animated like movies going down the line, because it would take away all of the soul and passion that a 2D project could provide. And you could argue that there's like some truth to his statement that 3D animation could never truly match the purpose and the point of 2D animation. However, as like the passage of time has gone on and we've gotten like masterpiece movies like the Spider-Verse films, Ratatouille, fucking The Incredibles, Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, Shrek 2, etc., etc., like a long list of some of the like movies in the past 2 decades that have been brought to us through the magic of computer generated graphics. And the most of Pixar's best movies, well, because Pixar is the 3D studio, Pixar is like has been lauded as the Western Ghibli. Like that, Pixar as like a living testament against what Miyazaki thought about 3D animation. So, time has made a delusional boomer out of Miyazaki in that regard.
To be fair, the clip that he was sent and that he did say, like, this is a... God, I forget the exact line.
I think it was like a mockery. I think the word mockery was thrown around. Or like an insult to life itself.
Yeah, insult to life itself. That's the main one that people latched onto. To be fair, the animation, I think it was like it was this 3D creature trained in AI to walk, given the parameters of its body, is what I'm.
Yeah, because it was like
it
was like some kind of abomination sludge monster that was, I think, had. I'd have to pull up the clip to remember, but it's not like a humanoid. It's like a monster.
Yeah, to be fair, I have no idea what they were thinking showing that to Miyazaki. Like, why did they think that would go well?
Yeah, that is kind of on them, but at the same time, Miyazaki is very close-minded in his views on animation. I mean, to be fair, and like once again, to be fair, Earwig and the Witch is the only 3D Ghibli movie, and it's I wonder if it's a coincidence that it's his worst, that it's the studio's worst.
Yeah, I mean, that probably made him feel vindicated.
Yeah,
But to put
and it was a Goro
bow,
Miyazaki work.
to
It
put a
is the kind of
bow
movie
on
that
this,
if I were Goro Miyazaki, I'd be embarrassed to look my dad in the eye, but at the same time, it's a two-way street.
yeah.
Just
But
because you have this this pedigree does not exempt you from being a good father.
so to put a bow on the ending discussion, my main issue with it is that I don't really. Okay, so the ending itself does very much have themes. I just don't really know how they connect with the rest of the movie much, honestly. I mean, sure,
It
it
is
does
a
start
little
off with
estranged from the whole hey, I need to accept that my mother is dead and like re-assimilate back into society. And with the literal interpretation, him choosing to go back to a world of strife and pain, but with the ability to, make friends and forge relationships, that can like be connected from that, but at the same time, I feel like the journey we took to get there and all that felt a little disconnected. Like
I feel like for that to be to really hit home, the Mahito would have to say something about the world itself being bad for having bad things in it. And, for that to be present in the dialogue somewhere, that the death of his mother has made him hate the world itself in some way. And that to then accept the world by the end of the movie, that would be this big turning point for his character. It would be this very visible arc. But as it is, it's like I can see the elements in the pot, but it's just missing that little bit of spice to make it all connect into this wonderful flavor. As it stands, it feels a little abrupt and not really, like the connective tissue is not really there. It needs a bit more of that to make it feel connected. Obviously, the metatextual interpretations, I mean, you don't really need to set that up through the film. That's all like non-literal stuff that you get if you're a Ghibli fan and, if you're interested in its swan song. So I don't think it's a problem that wasn't set up per se, because it's a metatextual interpretation. Of course it isn't. But the literal interpretation is poorly foreshadowed.
Yeah, and I feel like I would appreciate this movie more in a couple years with a rewatch, having seen, finished the Miyazaki catalog, probably finish the Ghibli catalog as a whole, just to, have that under my belt. And
Tales from
I feel like
Earthsea and Earwig and the Witch included.
I mean, I've already seen Earwig, and I know how bad that one is, but I haven't seen Earthsea yet. So maybe I'll have the contrarian opinion, and maybe I'll be like, Tales from Earthsea is misunderstood.
God, I really want to have that take. I want to give Tales from Earthsea a 9 out of 10. I probably won't, but it would be funny.
I feel like, unlike Spirited Away, though, where I feel like I could see myself one day giving it a 10 out of 10 if I rewatched it enough times and like I finally understood it, because I will admit that I, as of right now, don't fully understand Spirited Away. I feel like I understand Boy and the Heron more than I do Spirited Away, and I am still missing like maybe a couple bits and pieces, but I feel like once I do reach that a full understanding of this movie, it doesn't have the potential to become a 10. I feel like at best it can bump itself up from a 7 to an 8.
I feel like maybe if I if I watch the entire Ghibli catalog, specifically Miyazaki's, for the first time, and then rewatch The Boy and the Heron, maybe I'll get enough out of it to give it a 7. But as it stands, it's not a 7 to me. It's not even good.
Has this podcast swayed your opinion from a 5 to a 6?
It has not. If anything,
Okay.
I felt more. I was expecting, frankly, more of a revelation during the podcast of, oh, I missed this huge thing that makes complete sense when you've seen the rest of the Ghibli catalog.
Maybe the Goro Miyazaki thing holds more truth than even I have been claiming this whole time, and maybe that definitely would require like the full understanding of, Goro Miyazaki's failures and Hayao's incredible highs and the behind the scenes relationship that they have.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I just don't think it's that good of a movie. Mostly
it's
because
definitely not his best. He has made better movies.
Yeah, I feel like I'd be more forgiving of the disjointed plot if I liked Mahito more as a protagonist, but I don't. And I think that's like the first point that I keep coming back to, just because that's sort of the entry point for any movie to me. Do I like the characters in it? And for this one, not as much as I would like, certainly. And then aside from that, there are the other problems with how it's constructed and how certain things aren't explained and how certain things feel disconnected from other things. And it really, as a whole, feels like there should be more connective tissue between the events of the story and how they connect thematically. But as it stands, I feel like I'm pretty solid in my 5 out of 10. Like, comparing this to another show I gave a 5 out of 10 recently, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Like, I like the characters more in that, even if it was more boring. I guess I'll say this. I was never bored during the movie. It was well paced enough that I was not bored.
It's not a boring movie in the slightest.
But I just didn't feel connected to it. Whereas with Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I felt more connected to it and its characters and its world. Even if there were, it being much longer certainly didn't help in it becoming boring at many moments.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how your opinion of it changes as you see more Ghibli movies, because if, for reference, I gave Howl's Moving Castle a 5 out of 10, so if you think this movie that you gave a 5 was not boring, I'm very interested to see how low of a score you'll give Howl's Moving Castle. If you give it a low one at all, maybe you'll get appreciation out of it that I didn't, and you'll like it more than me.
The day I give Howl's Moving Castle a 4 out of 10 is the day that the anime community ousts me.
You will be gatekept from ever enjoying anime again. You'll never review anime. You'll never review Onimai in this town again.
Yeah, I feel like once I give Howl a negative score, it's all over.
Yeah, you heard it here first. You heard it here first, folks. Crunchy thinks that the latest Shinkai movie is better than the latest Ghibli Miyazaki movie.
Well, yes, objectively
Suzume is
speaking,
in fact
factually.
better than Boy and the Heron.
It is. And what that comes down to is I like Suzume more as a character. I really do.
I like the story of Boy and the Heron more than Suzume, though. I like Suzume as a character more than Mahito, but I don't like the story.
I like the story of Suzume more than this, honestly.
Nah.
I'll die on this hill. I think Suzume, despite its many issues, as a road trip movie, is very, very fun.
I'm looking forward to when we get to in January, when we get to the award show podcast that we're gonna be doing, and we get to the best film category, and you're gonna have to explain to several different people that Suzume is better than the new Ghibli movie.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it, because it's a hill I'm absolutely willing to die on. Shinkai, so far, given the one Miyazaki film I have seen, Shinkai, it's looking good for him so far.
I will say, Shinkai has made a better movie, but he has also made worse movies. Miyazaki.
True.
Yeah, Miyazaki, to my knowledge, so far has not made a movie worse than a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, fucking children. Funnily enough, my most knowledge.
Shinkai has made 2 of them. He's made 2 3s.
Yeah, the most knowledge I have of like watching a Ghibli movie is watching Shinkai's Ghibli knockoff.
Yeah.
Which was worse
so
than this.
Yeah. There we go. Alright. And with that, I think, yeah, we've definitely gone over the 2-hour mark, and this now is longer than the movie.
Hey, you know what? It's worth it for the people listening at home. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, now we can't be well, I guess if the spoiler-free discussion comes out to shorter than the movie, so yeah, okay, then it's justified, viewer. You can, if you watch the spoiler-free and then you came back to this podcast in the spoiler discussion after watching the movie, you're a real one. You're a real fan, and you proved it by liking the video, heading down to the comments, let us know what you think of Boy and the Heron, and subscribing so you don't miss an episode of Castaway Anime. You know you want to keep watching because we're that entertaining.
I mean, hey, we literally talked for like well over 2 hours, so there you go. I mean, if you're still here by that point, clearly something piqued your interest, and you should subscribe just for that alone.
Yeah, and with that, that'll do her for this episode of Castaway Anime. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And you'll see us next time.